Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode or this post for Teaching Towards Tomorrow, the Startup Spotlight. My name is Jenny Megara, and I am the author of Teaching Towards Tomorrow, as well as the Digital Learning Coordinator for a network of 32 Chicago public schools called the Academy for Urban School Leadership. In this series of Teaching Toward Tomorrow, the Startup Spotlight is looking for educational technology startups that are using their powers for good, who are truly making a difference in the lives of teachers and students, who take teacher feedback seriously and have an iteration loop that makes innovation in the classroom feel lightning speed. They're truly making the classroom feel like the classroom of the future, and they are definitely creating options for educators outside of some big box companies. I am thrilled to have an amazing startup with me here today that is based both out of the US and New Zealand. And we have the CEO and founder, Jan, with us. Hi, Jan. How are you?
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
And Jack West, who is also part of the team out of California. Right, Jack?
Yeah, I am, and thanks for having us.
Great. And Jan, I apologize. It's taken me a number of years to pronounce your first name correctly, so I didn't want to butcher your last name. Can you say your last name for us?
Zavatsky.
Zavatsky, there we go. All right. So Jan, Jack, thanks for coming. Jan, do you want to give the listeners and readers a quick overview of what is Hapara or Hapara, depending on where you live, how you pronounce it?
Hapara. We started life in New Zealand, really working with some local schools. The tools really evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years. The starting point really was some discussions with teachers who were facing some issues with just managing the flow of information through Google Apps. So most teachers who just start using Google Apps are quite ecstatic and start doing some amazing things with it. What they discover in year 2 and 3 is that the amount of information that hits them becomes overwhelming. And that's really where our tools came to life. Right? Was this notion that how do we help the teachers deal with the volume of information that's coming their way, and how do we provide a little structure around it, because that has been a sticking point for a lot of teachers. And again, that sort of notion that getting started is really easy, managing their environment in year 2 and 3 and 4 becomes progressively harder. So the toolset really is a layer that sits on top of Google Apps, on top of Drive sites, Calendar, Classroom, etc. It provides sort of a different level of visibility that makes it easier for the teacher to sort of have a holistic perspective across what's happening, who needs help, where do I engage, where do I spend my time as a teacher.
Awesome. So it works primarily or solely with Google Apps for Education, correct? So it's not the type of service that you could plug into Microsoft or something else.
Correct.
Awesome. And so I hear a lot about solving problems of practice. Jack and Jan, do you want to share, what are the main features when people hear about Hapara that they get pretty geeked up about?
I can start, Jan, if you don't mind. Having both used the product as a teacher before I left the classroom to join Jan's team, and now also in supporting teachers and administrators who are using the tools worldwide, there are a number of different things that you can do with the platform to make using your cloud-based platform easier, simpler, faster, and more effective. A couple that come to mind right away are simple file sharing, simple access to files for teachers who are working with a variety of students organized in different ways, usually into class groups of 20 or 30 or so. And then perhaps more than anything else, it's the visibility. So whether a teacher is using Google's Drive, gives them access to all of the files that the students are creating and working with and sharing, or whether they are using Blogger or Google Sites or Gmail or even Google+, the teacher will have a dashboard view of all of the activity that those teachers, or excuse me, that the students have been engaged in, presented in an easy to digest, clickable format that's organized by chronology.
Awesome. And so that specific tool it is called Interact, formerly known as Remote Control, correct?
Actually, what I was just referring to
Oh,
is Teacher Dashboard, the
oh, Teacher
foundational
Dashboard.
product.
Okay.
But Interact is also interesting, and it sits on top of the teacher dashboard, which sits on top of the Google platform, and allows teachers to interact directly with the student Chrome browsers, regardless of which machine they may be using, whether it's a MacBook or a PC. As long as they have the full Chrome browser, then the teachers will be able to open tabs and priority message and see what it is that the students are doing right there in that browser en masse, either in list format or in an easily visually digestible screen capture format.
We have teachers who really love this. They love using this particular service or tool to kind of catch their students being good. We have a student, Shirley Chavarria, who is our Hapara beta user, I guess you would say, in Chicago Public, was sending her students all of these messages saying, you did a great job today, or I noticed that you're working really hard, or I love how you're smiling while you're writing. And you'd see the students light up. You'd see their like little heads pop up behind their Chromebooks, and they'd look around and they'd look to the left and they'd look to the right and they'd say, did you get, and they'd say, oh my God, she caught the message. She sent the message just to me. She caught me being good. And they got that feeling of people noticed me. They're watching me. My teacher's looking out for me, not just to see if I'm getting the right grade, but to see if I'm being a good student and being the best version of myself. And it was so powerful to see her give that positive feedback to her students so seamlessly through such a simple tool that that's embedded in this. And I love how it's renamed Interact, because that's really what she was doing. She wasn't really remote controlling their devices so much as positively interacting with the kids. So that's awesome.
What I noticed as a teacher using the same tools before they are in the current state that they're in now, they've advanced quite a bit, was that normally when you interact with a student and you want to engage with their work, you may stand next to them and have a look at their paper or their computer and read over it for a little bit. They'll pause for a moment, and then you can hopefully provide some insight. But when you can do that with several students across the class at the same time, or one after the other, not only are you able to go a little bit deeper because you're not interrupting them, you're just collaborating with them in that moment, but they also seem to be more likely to come back at you with a comment of their own, even a disagreement, which is exactly what you want. You want to surface from the students more of their own emotion, more of their own thoughts, whatever it is that's coming to their mind about the work that they're engaged in at that moment.
The notion of visibility, right, is central, right? It's this idea that in the new platforms that schools are shifting to en masse really enable the type of interaction you were just talking about, Jenny, across a whole class. Right? It would be very, very difficult to do in a world of a paper notebook that you have to actually page through and look over the kids' shoulders. And so the idea of being able to pinpoint, here are the 3 kids who are actually doing an amazing job, and I'm gonna pat them on the head. I'm gonna highlight the amazing work they're doing. And here are a few kids who actually need a little bit more help. It's visibility, right? It really comes back to that notion of helping to make the work that students are doing more visible, more transparent to the teacher, and the effect is really powerful. And one of the comments I get a lot. I mean, I have sort of the best job in the world, right? I get to talk with teachers doing amazing things across the world every day. One of the amazing things that happens that I hear about a lot is teachers sort of gradually changing how they interact with the class because of that extra visibility, right? Because suddenly when you can see the work on an ongoing basis, when you can see the gradual improvement, when you can see the shift, how you engage with students changes, and that's, I think, immensely powerful. And that's what everybody wants. I think, more so than in most professions. Certainly, my experience over the last few years has been that teachers putting an immense amount of effort in an environment that's oftentimes more challenging than most other professions. And so, being able to provide a little bit of help on that front. Feels great. It's amazing to see the outcomes that are being generated, because a lot of our schools and teachers are in fairly challenging environments. So being able to see the impact is profound. That's kind of what keeps our team running.
So that's a great segue, actually, Jack and Jan. Do you have any examples of great stories from the classrooms of how Hapara is being used, or even how teachers have influenced the product pathway that Hapara has taken?
Right. So teachers influenced the product path from the very start. In other words, we didn't start as an education company. Right? Again, my background is engineering. We started literally over a meal with some teachers in a local school that we helped to move to Google some years prior, talking about the challenges they had, and literally starting to draw on some napkins. We're saying, how should this look? I mean, if you had your choice, how would you like to see this work? And what emerged out of this a few months later was a hack. It was a hack for some friends, and that hack sort of got out of control, right? And that kind of became Hapara and the thing that it is today. So there wasn't some massive, huge point of blinding flash of the obvious on our part, right? This really came out of a classroom, out of teachers talking about what they need and how this should work. And what we've tried very hard to do is to strike a really fine line, making sure that we're creating tools that do not require the teacher to change their pedagogy, to change their approach to teaching and learning, or there's no philosophical shift here. These are information management tools that make whatever it is you're currently doing easier, but will hopefully, just by the nature of what they do, by the additional transparency they provide, actually change a little bit how you engage with students in a direction I think most teachers are trying to shift towards. So one of the very earliest features we put in, and again, this was sort of a blinding flash of the obvious in hindsight, but on the bottom of every teacher-facing screen, there's a bar that says, how do we make this page better? Click here, type something, press enter. Right? And we get a huge amount of feedback from teachers. Right? So pretty much everything we do is driven by feedback from teachers. And the cool thing is that we, through this process, what we've always been trying to do is make sure that we're building tools for the schools that are going to be mainstream in 2 years, as opposed to 2 years back. Right? So you always want to build for the people who are sort of on the leading edge of the wave. And the amazing experience over the last couple of years is that the shift that we're seeing in education globally, because this is not just a U.S. phenomenon, has accelerated. Right? So what we had expected to be a fairly prolonged process, that mainstream is catching up in a hurry, which is great. It's awesome because we're seeing the impact again that has on students, the impact that has, I think, on education as a whole. Some specific examples. There are thousands, because literally pretty much everything we've done has been fueled by a teacher somewhere saying, hey, it would be really cool if we could just do this. And we do a ton of experimentation. So we've customized, for example, how we lay out the folder structures we create for certain schools. So if you really have a better way to manage the content structure and provide a sort of a year-to-year continuity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we're happy to do that. Our model is very much that we don't so much invent as we take what's emerging as best practice and reduce it to something that's really easy to use for others. Jack, any anecdotes that come to mind?
I think that we see over and over again schools that are interested in making a transition into the digital workplace a little bit on faith and maybe with a little bit of experimentation from one or two lead teachers that make a commitment then to use a cloud-based platform. May go that direction without using our tools and find that they're taking more time to do what they need. They are a little bit lost and feeling as if their students have just entered into a big forest and they can see some of them, a leg here, an arm there, but they kind of feel like they're on a field trip that has gone awry. And what we do is to bring the group back together for them metaphorically, and schools let us know. So we get the feedback through our social media where teachers are saying, oh my God, I love Google, I love collaborative documents, I love blogging, I love all of this, but I was overwhelmed and now I feel like I can do this and I can encourage more project-based learning if that's their thing. I can encourage kids to write more frequently in the informal setting in a social environment if that's their thing. I can actually now finally begin to differentiate and allow kids to move at their own pace if that's their thing, because of the fact that they have a knowledge management structure that allows them to manifest those best practices.
Awesome. So, I hear that you guys are constantly iterating, that you started off with like a dream and not even a clear path of where you're going, and you're just seeing where the road takes you. But do you have any aspirations for the near future? Are there things that folks should be getting excited for or anticipating, looking for tweets or updates?
So, like most technology companies, we have some scars on our backs from talking about things that we're working on with an aspiration of a particular release date, which then universe conspires to not allow us to meet, despite best efforts. So I'm going to be a little circumspect about the things that we're doing, but probably the bigger theme here is consistent, right? What we're seeing is the benefit of visibility, making it easier for teachers to see what's going on, to engage with the student work, and to take some of the cognitive load of the teacher. One of the things I found, I think for the people on the team who've been teachers, that's kind of been obvious, but coming into it from the outside, right? One of the really striking things was just how much mental load teachers have, right? How much stuff you have to keep in your head and juggle every day. And so we're looking at ways that, looking at the information we hold, information we have access to, and say, well, how can we take some of that load off? How do we make it easier for the teacher to just say, oh, well, that stuff I don't have to remember anymore. That's being tracked for me, and it's really easy for me to access. Like everybody, we're trying to figure out how do we bring more information that's relevant to the teacher in front of them, and the really sort of the principle that's underpinning a lot of that effort is in not wanting to put another dashboard, another page full of widgets in front of a teacher. What we're really aiming for, probably the closest metaphor would be a fuel efficiency gauge, right? Something that doesn't change how a car behaves, right? It doesn't brake any harder, it doesn't accelerate any softer, but it changes driver behavior. So we're hoping to build tools that provide additional visibility to the teachers and make the engagement that most teachers really are striving for something that's really easy, intuitive, simple. So transparency is the key. Additional sort of management of the workflows, the death of 1,000 paper cuts that a lot of teachers have to deal with on a daily basis, right? Is continuing to take some of the pain away, and at the same time making sure that what we're supporting is not pedagogy of yesteryear, right? We don't want to build tools for the schools from the 19th century. we are very much interested in fostering student agency, right? And this is one of the common themes we've seen all over the world. When we look at the teachers who truly stand out, the people who are profound in terms of how they engage with their students, what we tend to see are teachers who are making that transition to student ownership of the process, of the workflow, etc. So we're looking at ways of supporting that. Again, our mission isn't to build a single tool. Right? We have a whole family of things we're working on with a common theme, and that's taking the pain away through visibility, through student agency, etc. I think there's one thing we can show.
So,
I'm not sure if Jack has.
Oh, cool.
Jack, I'm not sure if you're able to put it up.
I can, but my voice in the background is going to be overpowered by a blender that's going on. So if I can show it if you can talk.
Sure. So one of the sort of imminent updates that Jack is about to show is an upgraded, perhaps somewhat more modern interface to the core teacher dashboard suite. One of the things we've been working with is extending a lot of the teacher dashboard interface into new areas, and this is a screen that's taking a lot longer than it should to load. There is
the one I shared was the test site, so unfortunately I don't have access to the main site.
That's fine. We've been reworking the main interface, and how about this, Jenny? Next time around, we'll do an in-depth demo of the new tools. But we've had a team that's been very hard at work for the last a couple of years in some cases, working on some cool tools we'd love to share.
Awesome. Well, that was a good sneak peek. I mean, it was literally like a quick peek, and so people are going to have to rewind and pause it to kind of see. But there are a lot of cool changes, and I'm sure some interesting UI tweaks that folks should be looking forward to. So, Jan, Jack, thank you so much for the work that you're doing to support teachers and students. Teachers out there, administrators, please continue to click on that button at the bottom of the page, give them feedback, tweet Hapara. What's your Twitter handle? Is it Hapara Team?
It's at, I was going to say Hapara, which is how it's pronounced in New Zealand, but now it's Hapara_team.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to pull that up so folks can see it. Oh, here it is. So go ahead and follow Hapara Team and take a look at what they're doing. This is a great place to keep to stay tuned to for updates, things like that. And if you have any feedback, it sounds like they keep it into the social media ground per se, and will definitely keep your thinking in mind, and perhaps you'll see it in a future iteration of their product. So thank you so much, Jan and Jack, for joining us. I know it's early where you are, but I appreciate you waking up and chatting with me and giving some ideas to teachers about how you do the things you do. One of the purposes of the Startup Spotlight is to inspire teachers to become their own teacherpreneurs, and also students to think about how to turn dreams into action. So hearing about your philosophy and the way that you're creating positive change is definitely inspiring. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you for hosting us, Jenny.